Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for talking to Newsnight. It's been some months since you spoke to our viewers. I want to ask you, first of all, in terms of what you call the special military operation, is everything going according to plan?
It's difficult for me to say because I do not know the plan. And of course, in every big event, plans might be changing. But as far as I understand, the goals of the operation, they are being pursued. We have now more stabilized situation over there. And actually, things looks that we have a certain stability in this situation right now.
And by stability, what do you mean?
By stability, that there are no serious moves, that I will say counterattack that has been promised by Ukrainians that is not a success in different fronts in the east and in the south. Of course, we do not have serious movement on the line of front. You may ask me, of course, about that we have left Kherson. That is true for pure military reasons, because it is undefendable, the place on the right side of Dnieper. It is not defendable at that moment, unfortunately. So our troops is now regrouping, and what I am seeing is I do not envisage that in the coming, say, weeks or days, we will have serious events on the ground.
So is this conflict unfolding in the way you expected it to?
Well, I will say that it was a grave mistake by Ukrainian to start a fight against all Russians, against Russian language and against all Russians. It will bring only disaster to Ukraine itself. It will continue to do. Day by day, Ukraine is getting money and armament from NATO countries, and it is exhausting its human potential.
I'm asking about the Russian objectives. Is it unfolding in the way you wanted it to?
The whole idea was to assist Donbass Russians that are living in Donbass area, Donetsk and Lugansk, and in the south. So what we are doing is protecting them from further attacks. And actually, at the moment, I do see that then they are in a much better position than before it all has started. At least we need to end the fight that has started not now, not in the February, but several years ago in 2014.
When you look at President Putin's objectives when Russian troops went into Ukraine this year, to make NATO weaker, he's failed. To warn Russia's neighbours or near neighbours not to join NATO or attempt to join the EU, he's failed. The attempt to take over Kyiv, he's failed. The attempt to take over Kharkiv region, he's failed. Kherson, the only place Russian troops did manage to occupy for a period of time, where billboards in the city stated that Kherson would be Russian forever, failed. It's time for Russia to leave Ukraine, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe it will ever happen. I don't believe that we tried to achieve gaining Kyiv. It's not possible. It is 3 million of population of itself and very strong region. That was not the goal, of course.
It looked like it was the goal.
No, it was not the goal. It was just a pure military reason, because when you are coming into one place from 3 different regions, you are just stretching forces, and that is all. It was impossible to stay over there. At least even now, we have 1,200 kilometers of line of front, which we have to keep. Other failure that you have named, what was that? Kherson, I have already mentioned. What else?
Well, Kherson, you said, would be Russian forever.
Well, it is still the goal, I guess.
The goal? You've been there and been pushed back.
Yeah, we have pushed back. I have started our interview from the statement that is for pure military reasons. We are now taking the left side of Dnieper. Dnieper, this is a river which is dividing land in two parts.
No, I understand, but
But
you wanted Kherson to be Russian forever, and it's not.
Please understand that it cannot last forever, because what is happening
That's what you stated it would be. That I'm just reading to you the words that were on the billboards that Russians put up in Kherson.
No, it might happen temporarily, yes, of course. We have evacuated about 100 to 20,000 people from Kherson. 80,000 has left in Kherson, and I would say that they are not in a good position right now.
Nor are the Russians. You've had to withdraw.
No, not many. We evacuated population of Kherson mainly, about 2/3 of that. 1/3 has left over there.
Sure, but you also evacuated your own troops to the other side of the river.
Exactly.
What is there anything Russia would have done differently this year when you look back?
Differently. Well, I'm not a general staff member. I do not have military plans.
No, but when you look at overall the progress or lack of progress your troops have made.
No, we have taken certain areas over there, very serious area, and what I would say, what is lacking, the element which is lacking here is, of course, a necessity of an agreement. We were very close to an agreement in April, and it could have been a total cease, and we could have achieved our goals, of course, but then someone, I think in Washington, decided to supply arms and money to Ukraine and make it fight, and they continue to do this. And we see that Ukrainian government is like a hamster in a wheel. He is running after money and weapon and continue to do that.
Who's like a hamster in a wheel?
The government of Ukraine, President Zelensky. Very much like that.
It was you who made them fight by invading their country.
Oh, come on. The fight has started in 2014, much earlier, and it continued for 8 years because they were shelling, killing, discriminating Russian people that are living in the east of Ukraine. So this is not a new fight. Since just simply the West tried to not to look at it like a fight, but we have people who were dying because of shelling. You know that in Donetsk they have built up a fortress from which they continue to shell during 8 years. Women and children, even children has grown up during this 8 years.
And there are many, many, many more people who are dying from your shelling. And I've spoken to many Ukrainians since February the 24th, civilians, many of them, and some speak Russian. And they grew up in Ukraine speaking Russian, and they respected Russia, and in some cases called Russians their brothers. And now they despise Russia. They have told me time and time again, they don't want to be liberated, your word,
and we
by
are
Russia.
We are not trying to liberate Ukraine. We do not have a problem with Ukrainian people. We have a problem with Ukrainian nationalistic government.
Why? If you don't have a problem with Ukrainian people, why are you killing them then?
No, do not interrupt me. Okay, let me finish it.
Don't interrupt me as well, sir.
You put me questions, I provide you answers. Or is it different?
If you don't have a problem with Ukrainian people, why are you killing so many of them?
We do not we do not target civilians, we do not kill Ukrainian people. We have a problem, big problem with nationalistic government in Ukraine, which they is now decided to fight against Russia, very much encouraged by the United States and other NATO countries, as well as London, I will say.
Do you really believe that?
Absolutely, I know that. Because since these years I used to work in the OSCE and I have seen the developing of all these stories from many, many years ago.
Half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure is either damaged or destroyed. At the moment, 10 million people are without power. That's according to the World Health Organization. Targeting civilian infrastructure, targeting civilians, is not within the international rules of war. Do you accept that?
If in NATO language it is called C3 infrastructure, command, control, and communication, and logistics. So what we are doing, what our military are doing, they are destroying command, control, and communication systems. There are occasional victims, probably, it might happen, but we are not targeting civilians, neither civilian infrastructure.
Amnesty say the strategy behind Russia's latest warfare tactics is unmistakable. In bombing Ukraine's critical civilian infrastructure, including energy facilities, The Russian army clearly intends to undermine industrial production, disrupt transportation, sow fear and despair, and deprive civilians in Ukraine of heat, electricity and water as the cold grip of winter approaches.
Well, I will remind you that in this situation, United States has bombed bridges in Yugoslavia in 1999.
I'm asking you about Russian troops in Ukraine now.
No, it's a normal way of doing it. Just think about what they have done in Iraq by bombing cities, civilians, and all of that. We're not bombing.
Our audience will notice that you are deflecting on many of these questions. I'm asking you about targeting Ukrainian civilians and Ukrainian civilian infrastructure.
I have given you an answer. What is happening over there? It is C3 infrastructure.
Every time Russia withdraws from an area, the UN finds fresh evidence of war crimes committed. Do you accept that Russian troops have committed war crimes in Ukraine?
Well, if you will look in yesterday's and the day before yesterday's, what is happening in Kherson, you will see that Russians are being sticked by sticky tape to the lampposts, numerous of them. They have been put into coffins. And I will remind you yesterday's evidence when it was cold-blooded murder, execution of the Russian war prisoners by Ukrainians. It has been filmed and it is widely distributed. So it happens during the war.
Do you accept that Russian troops have committed war crimes?
Well, this is the war, and we nail all the evidences of Ukrainian committed war crimes. Well, I think that the other side is doing the same.
So yes, you do accept that Russian troops have committed war crimes in Ukraine?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen these evidences because there are lots of speaking about it. We are taking materials about war crimes committed by Ukrainians.
Can I give you some evidence
obvious,
from the United Nations?
That are obvious.
A UN commission said last month said that war crimes had been committed in Ukraine and that Russian forces were responsible for the vast majority of human rights violations at the start of the invasion.
I can remind you Amnesty International that has also delivered a lot of facts on Ukrainian forces committed war crimes.
You deflect, Mr. Ambassador, every time I give you some evidence.
Where is the evidence?
From the United Nations Commission.
It has the majority of it.
Sorry?
The evidence that you cited to me, it has that it is the majority of it. So there are others.
I can give you some examples. This is what the United Nations Commission says were committed by Russian troops. Summary executions in Bucha. In Kharkiv, 2 witnesses reported Russian soldiers beating and shooting dead a person who they dragged off a bus that was transporting people to the Russian Federation. In Kyiv, 2 Russian soldiers went into a house, raped a 22-year-old woman several times, committed acts...
Well, is it a discussion? No,
committed acts of sexual violence on her husband, forced the couple to have sexual intercourse in their presence. Then one of the soldiers forced their 4-year-old daughter to perform oral sex on him, which is rape. That's some of the evidence.
You can find this type of evidences or this type of files or whatever it is in the internet about anything, about this side or that side.
This is the UN Commission, it's not the internet.
This is not this is not a discussion. If you like to have a serious discussion on the subject of what is happening in Ukraine, it is not about a single situation here or there. If you like to discuss politics or serious picture, I will be interested. If not, then well, please you will continue reading the materials that are in your newspapers.
Right, so you don't believe Russian troops have done any of those things?
I can imagine that something is happening, of course. This is war.
And that's unacceptable, isn't it? If Russian soldiers are going into women's houses and raping them.
For us, it is not acceptable that if Ukrainian soldiers are sticking with the tapes to the lampposts, normal people, and putting them into the coffins or killing them or humiliating them, neither accepted it to us.
You know that Ukrainians say, in that instance, it was about self-defense. Do you think that making people cold in Ukraine is going to break their resolve?
I do not think that I should repeat your previous answers to your previous questions.
The reason I say that again is because from the Ukrainians I've spoken to, it makes them more determined, more strong.
Victoria, if you like, you can make an interview with yourself then.
I'm just asking you what the Russian troops are going to do,
I
the
have
more
told
determined the Ukrainians become.
I have told you already what are the events over there, what are the targets, what is happening during this war. So please, if you have more questions, I will be delighted, but more serious perhaps.
And that is a serious question. The more the infrastructure is targeted, the colder people get, the more determined in Ukraine they seem to become. Do you accept that?
They can finish it up tomorrow if they like.
So could the Russians by leaving?
No, I don't think so. We cannot leave and just leave Russian people over there because they will be once again killed, humiliated, and all this will continue once again. So why should we leave?
You know that's absurd. You know that's absurd.
It is in your view, it's absurd. It's not in mine, neither in my country's view.
I wanted to ask you, if I may, is your son fighting in Ukraine?
My son, he is a grown-up, he has a family, he is not fighting in Ukraine.
Would you be comfortable with him going to the front line?
Why should I? I'm a diplomat here, I have a working position here, I have been assigned here to his.
But how would you feel if he went to the front line?
No, it is out of, at the moment, I do not see this a possibility because he was never trained as a soldier, he has no profession over there, but it might happen, of course. Why not? Why not?
He might be called up.
He might, no, not at the moment, because the calling up has finished a month, some time ago, and we do believe that we have now sufficient strength over there for protection of land that is now part of Russian Federation.
Can I ask you what President Putin's, or what the Kremlin's current thinking is on the use of nuclear weapons?
There is no thinking because I have had already an option to answer this question because there is no intention and this is not a situation when nuclear weapons can be used at all.
There's no intention. So
this is not intention and this is not a situation at which nuclear weapons might be used.
So do you think the possibility then of Russia using tactical nuclear weapons has receded now?
Receded? You mean what?
There's less possibility of it happening?
I do believe there is no possibility that we can come to implement tactical nuclear weapons. No.
No possibility?
The answer is no.
Okay. Because you told... do you think people should believe you? Because you told Newsnight viewers in February that those Russian troops that were on exercise in Belarus would be going back to Russia. They would not be going into Ukraine. And several days later, they went into Ukraine.
No, I have said what I used to know at this moment. No more and no less than that.
Does President Putin want a way out of this conflict?
Well, any conflict, any war is ended at the table of negotiations.
And is there any kind of informal negotiating going on?
No.
No. So at what point will you get to that stage?
Informal negotiations are not going on because Kiev is very stubborn in it. Kiev has an illusion that it can win this war. It is pure illusion. It is not possible. But Kiev cannot reject having weapons and money from the West. So this is a problem. They have taken a law which is forbidding to Ukrainian president to negotiate.
But they don't need to negotiate yet because the momentum is with them, isn't it?
The momentum, yes. I do think that at the moment momentum is with them. We do not deny we can enter into negotiations because we were thinking that in April we were close to achieving a result. Unfortunately, Kiev decided differently and it continued a path of war. Right.
But if you left Ukraine, the war would be over?
No.
It would?
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid that purging of civilians, what is happening now in Kherson, and we clearly see it, what is happening now in the north in Kharkov area, where Russians were still pursued and badly, very badly treated, I will say.
What is your message to the West right now?
Message is clear that the West should stop sending money and weapons to Ukraine, because Ukraine has lost quite a lot of territory, of its economic potential, of its economy, agriculture, and so on. Right now, its human potential is exhausting. And the West do not think about human potential of Ukraine. We will have a black hole in the place of Ukraine that has no economy, no its own money, and even no its own people. It is very badly. The West should think about Ukraine, because it is very serious.
If Russia left Ukraine, then that human potential would be protected. That economic potential would be protected. It would be able to flourish.
Victoria, you probably do not know, but in Ukraine, 60%, before the war, 60% of population was speaking Russian or being Russians. Just imagine.
That's right.
Just imagine that.
And they couldn't believe it when Russian troops started to bomb them.
In Belgium, someone is going to prohibit Flemish language, or in Switzerland, someone is going to prohibit Italian or German language. How it will be treated in these countries?
But I've interviewed Russian-speaking Ukrainians. No one was stopping them speaking Russian.
It is prohibited by law.
No, it's not.
Education.
It's not. I've interviewed them. They've had to. People in Zaporizhia,
really?
elderly people in Zaporizhia who've grown up speaking Russian, who respected Russia, who've had to flee Ukraine because they were being bombed by Russians.
Well, I have to make an observation that you do better study laws of Ukraine and what is happening. What are the governmental decrees on this subject? It is prohibited, in education is prohibited in Russian. Literature is prohibited in Russian. All opposition parties that are supporting Russian cause and the others are now prohibited. Newspapers are prohibited. TVs and all of that, the language is prohibited. And it means that they are squeezed out of the countries. Just remember what the president was saying, that if you are Russian, just take your baggage and go to Russia. It has been repeated many times. They believe that Russians are inhuman, and they are saying it openly.
Well, they've never said it to me. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for talking to Newsnight.
Okay.